Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a very warm welcome to all of you. And I'm thankful to each one for taking the time out to learn, to share, and to evolve for a better tomorrow. I'm your host, Kamesh, and we gathered around with the industry distribution leaders and experts from the hospitality space to discuss how hotels can navigate COVID-19 by strengthening their distribution for a better tomorrow. You know, over the last few months, we've seen how, the spate of unprecedented challenges for us in hospitality and travel space. And it's been a never ending, I would say, strive for us to be better, to learn something new, to evolve, to rediscover, and we haven't given up as hoteliers. Kudos to each one of you for bringing that and bringing the service excellence to the next level during these times. As we enter May, we've seen some silver linings, of course, we've also strived harder to kind of recover sooner for each of our organizations. And we know that distribution is the key for any hotel's revenue opportunity. I mean, it's directly related to the core of revenue success, and more than that, it's also recovering from the losses faster the better for all of us. And that's one of the reasons we've kind of collaborated together today through our initiative to kind of gain from insights from the distribution experts from hospitality space. So I take privilege to kind of introduce our speakers for today. Ludovic, who's the VP Global Distribution for Shangri-La Hotels and Resorts, an eminent hotelier, a very strong thought leader from the distribution and revenue space. He's worked with IG and a lot of global brands before this. We have Nicolas Durand, who's the Senior Director of Global Distribution for Jumeirah Hotels and Resorts. We've got Sathis Aravinda, the Regional Director, Revenue and Distribution, Middle East and Africa for Millennium Hotels and Resorts. And that's me with the smiling face while I still smile across the screen here. So I head the APAC, Middle East and Africa for RateGain. So very warm welcome once again, and thanks to all our experts for joining this initiative together. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's actually been, it's been a bad timing a couple of months back, but we've seen silver linings now. I think it's also been on our positive focus and the various methodologies that we've tried from the industry. So I'm going to share a quick glimpse on what is the silver lining looking like here. Of course, we see how the uptick movement on the global OTA space is showing an uptick movement. Of course, the recovery phase has been not as substantial as it should be, but the uptick itself is a silver lining for all of us. And to the extent that mid-March, which was the worst month for the global hospitality landscape, it's absolutely shown a growth over that year. Same goes to the global GDS space, which is of course not really marginal or substantial in terms of increase, but it's trending upwards, which is a lot more sign. And even the bookings have increased on the GDS space by 108% since the lowest was witnessed in the mid-March this year. Also, we see, we see the recovery trends, and what we saw earlier. It's basis our RateGain research labs. We power distribution through our channel manager and Disco Switch. So we've consumed and utilized our own data that we distribute for over 200,000 hotels worldwide. So through that, we've even seen the net booking trends recover slightly on the positive side for Asia Pacific, thanks to the the easing out situation in certain countries within the APAC, with domestic opening up first. Although Africa and Middle East has still seen a flat kind of curve, but yes, we do expect recovery, right? Or we do expect some uptick, say after Ramadan period as well. while the lockdowns have been extended further by 2 weeks in the Middle East at present. Yes, I think we've all been wanting to know about this, and there's no surprises on how China has recovered the fastest, and it looks very positive on the upward trending. So this is again based on our own research labs on distribution, that is through Disco and RateGain in collaboration with STR. So this is something that we saw, and it's trending more upwards, including not just the booking, but also the ADRs that are shooting upwards for the next 3 months in the mainland so far. Vietnam again, congrats for all the hoteliers who've joined us from Vietnam on the opening up from May 1st, and business trying to come back to normal with the planes, buses, public transport, and even the airlines opening up for the domestic travel. This would be, this is a very big hope for all of us in Asia to see the upward trending in the Vietnam market here. Silver lining continues. So, while we see the facts driven by our, our own research labs, silver lining for us is our customer. Of course, we kind of seeing a hope there. We're seeing a silver lining on that front as well. Thanks to our, our own product teams, we innovated something called the market drone. And like any drone, it actually helps hotel, to know the changes that occur on any CRSs from anywhere and act to those changes at that moment itself. So we can probably see a lot more change on the demand side. Here we see, so when it comes to the lockdown, we just picked Indonesia. We see an upward trending for the next 3 months. Of course, I think hotels with a lot more flexibility on the cancellations and amendment policies are also seeing some forward bookings coming in now, which we are able to showcase to them through Market Drone. And even the ADRs are a bit marginal in terms of the increases. I mean, it shoots up in the month of July to a 174 as well. And the sample size here is all 3 stars and above. Thailand also is not behind when it comes to the forward booking that's already started moving. Again, with the flexibility, supporting their own customers and travelers by the hotels, this has really led to a lot more upward trending for the bookings and rate increase also, over the next 3 months. It's a straight upwards curve here, which we can see completely. India, of course, the curve. So this actually continues. I mean, we can go on with markets. So these are positive signs for us and for hotels to actually gear up now and prepare for the bounce back. And I would say that distribution is definitely the fastest way to recover if we make it a lot more smarter and prepared in our own perspectives here. I mean, on that note, I would love to, commence our discussion for which we have gathered together and probably bring in the discussion points with our eminent experts from the online distribution space. So yes, of course, we've seen the trends, we've seen the positive signs, we've seen some of the best practices coming from the hospitality industry and even technology front. What would you think? Ludovic, coming to you on this point. So, what's your take on what are the current happenings in the online distribution space? Understanding you've got a very global spread of your brands and properties across most of the continent. So, how would you see that that change at present, Ludovic? Over to you.
Thank you, Kamesh, and I think welcome to everyone, and glad to be here and contribute to this webinar. So I think, like you pointed out with your introductions, there are several differences by market, right? So what we are living right now, it's different. Will be different by different markets. So definitely, we can all see that China has an edge, right? Which to me, it's a good sign for the rest of the world. They've been in lockdown for for over 2 months now. Over 90% of the hotels have been reopening into the country. Interestingly, we have been seeing, particularly for the Labor holiday that was basically happening last week, a decent recovery, particularly using the online travel agency channel and the digital channel. Now, interestingly, from some of the data we have seen, there's been an uptick into a lot of domestic travel. Even if the travel were like restricted to from province to province, there were like people are really willing to travel and to move again. So I think one of the first conclusion we can make around the change in the distribution space is really it turns toward domestic demand, right? Which then it's the first learning for all of us to understand how we're going to capture that demand, right? So and that comes some of the conversation you had and some interactions on staycation. What we're seeing as well is that outside of China, some signs of recovery in Australia. So Australia is a very strong market, very high domestic demand. There also good news of a bubble that might be created between a travel bubble that might be created between New Zealand and Australia, bringing further, and maybe Fiji bringing further opportunity. Flights probably remain the big question. So there's a better, from the data that we've seen, there's also like a better flights availability and capacity for domestic. However, international, there's no signs at the moment for international flights, which confirms some of the trends that we were talking about before. Now, what we see a lot from an online distribution perspective is a couple of two trends. One is definitely geared towards staycation. There is also a lot of programs that have been launched by OTAs, by chains, by hotels around voucher, right? Stimulate demand with a pre-buy voucher, that include a stay or an experience within the property that should help the hotel cash flow. Now, what is interesting as well from a demand perspective is sort of a change in lead time. So what we're seeing is a very short lead time, which is not too much new for China, but what we're seeing as well, for example, in a market like Australia. Now, another interesting point, it's how people are also behave when they make a new booking. So new bookings are still pretty low compared to where they were before. But interestingly, what we are seeing is that for short-term window, people tend to buy more promotional offer, non-refundable rates. So they're more willing to give you that non-refundable piece that is so important for your cash flow, because they have more certainty to be able to travel, right? And what we are seeing is that for the few bookings that are coming through for Q3 and Q4, we're seeing a predominance on flexible booking, right? Because obviously consumer do not have that certainty to be able to commit yet into a non-refundable rates, for example. So that's as well another interesting trend that we are seeing that will inform what is going to be your pricing strategy in the future, right? So if consumer are now looking to Q3 and Q4 and are probably looking to your bar rate, are you really priced to the market level to capture that source market and to capture that reservation, right? So I think that's another interesting point that we've been seeing into the online space.
Interesting. I mean, I couldn't agree more on that. Absolutely, we see the domestic, and we can see those signs with the data that's proving it too, and even the recovery signs for each country. So thank you so much for that amazing insight, Ludovic. Over to you, Nicholas. I mean, you've got a very, very niche kind of spread. Part of it is in China, part of it is in Southeast Asia, and yes, of course, the Middle East and Africa. What's your take and your share on this front?
I thank you, Kamek. Thank you for the invitation. So, yes, just to confirm on what Ludovic just mentioned is, yes, in China, we can see with the few hotels we have, that's, yeah, the occupancy is rising. And yes, there was a higher demand at the beginning of the months. When I'm looking at, obviously, Jumeirah has a much stronger footprint in Middle East and especially in the UAE. I think different things is we can see right now there's actually quite a high demand of staycation, or high demand. There is a demand for staycation locally. Obviously, depending on the Emirates, there's different rules by the government that each and every hotelier have to adhere to, right? Also, having discussed with few OTAs, definitely the OTAs are seeing rise in increase of traffic right now. So obviously for the past few weeks, they can see really the traffic increasing. It's very interesting to discuss and try to get some data from the OTAs of which market is this. Obviously very local. I think everybody understands that first the local market will be first, then regional, then internationals, right? But there's definitely people searching. There's a dreaming phase. Maybe the conversion into bookings is not yet fully yet. Also, I think another thing to look at is what do the customer want now? It's a different customer behavior. So what we've seen also is there's definitely more demand for example, for resorts with private pools, for example. Customers want to have access to in-room dining as opposed to going to the buffet. So it's how hotels will adapt to this new customer demand, to the new regulation also by the different governments, and go back with the best offers that suit that demand. But there's definitely some things. When I was discussing with some OTAs also, they were saying there's, especially for Dubai specifically, there was still a lot of searches from Russia and the US, which I was actually fairly surprised about, especially when you see the current situation in Russia and the US. So I think there's a positive trend where, you know, customers are still into this dreaming phase and things will come, and obviously everything is linked to each and every local government, how the lockdown will be eased and how we're going to go back to, I would say not normal, but what the new normal should be. Absolutely. So that's about it for my take.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure as travelers, we all dream. We're craving to head out to our bucket list destinations, to our favorite hotels, who've given us the best of memories. So I couldn't agree more on that point, Nicholas. Thanks for those insights. Over to you, Sathis. You know, specifically when it comes to the micro market and the specialized market where your properties are and prominent for your brand. Within the Middle East and Africa, how would you see this, replicate from Middle East to Africa? I mean, how's this changing on that space here?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the RateGain team and especially Kamesh taking initiative to organize such a great webinar. I think it's a very timely touch subject and very relevant to today's situation. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me to be part of that as well. So going back to the subject, what's happening around? What we have seen, I mean, it's an unprecedented scenario that no one to be blamed today. So we just have to make sure that we adapt, we learn what's happening, and we adapt to the new norms, and also learn the customer behavior during such a unprecedented time, how the customers are going to behave. A couple of trends, what we have identified in the area is that we have seen a gradual growth in terms of traffic, which is obviously, is expected, because when, the market witness a zero traffic and then situations get normal, so you obviously expect a little growth on the traffic. However, the behavior of the travelers have changed in the area. So we have seen the traffic coming in the future, a higher length of stay, assuming that this would be probably because many customers has been, living inside homes without not having opportunities to go out and enjoy the usual hospitality life. So they want to take that chance and probably stay more. So we have seen an average of 4 to 5 nights length of stay, which is normally used to be around 2 to 3 nights length of stay. So people do not hesitate to stay a little extra when the opportunity is available for them. We also have seen, as Ludovic and Nicolas said both, the short lead time. So it has become very, very, very short lead time. It's not something new. We have seen the lead time has been changing over the past couple of years, but it's become very short. So people make decisions a couple of hours before they travel. Also, as what Ludovic also shared with the outcome of what they have seen in China, we have seen a lot of domestic demand, and it is expected, obviously, that the customer who travels first will be your domestic customer. So within your own country, from a city to a city, or a border crossing, driving by roads once the borders are open. We also see resorts get more attracted by the customers rather than the city hotels. So resorts receive more traffic, more demand from the current demand, what is happening, and also city gets a lower demand. So this is where I believe that hoteliers and the travel partners needs to be much more creative in how we are going to redirect that demand and get our city hotels full, or city hotels being attracted. So, focusing on the staycations and also the opportunities to understand the customer behavior. The norm of the hotel USP, unique selling point, has been changed. So it is not about your unique selling point anymore. It is about what customer wants to see in your hotel, how safe the customer are. And these are the norms that are actually changing in the hospitality industry today, especially with hotels that wants to attract the new norms and the new customers going forward. That's my input, Kamesh.
Fantastic, and I really synchronize with each one of your statements, and I think it's really getting close to how we're actually visualizing the phase-wise growth. Staycation, it is. I would add another component, something like a drivecation. I mean, what can be driven is the first safest for any traveler. So yes, it's a fantastic point. I mean, coming on to the next point, and again, bringing the staycation, bit, the drivecation bit, the domestic openness of the market, and what we're seeing about, resorts getting more traction. So Nicholas, I love how you've kind of created this initiative for carefree vacation for the UAE residents offer. I mean, that's really commendable. And even something like the advanced purchases. So, this is already being brought as a practice online by you. How would you see that? What would be the other coping strategies? What can hotels do now that can really enhance their presence and churn, more revenue in the near future? Over to you, Nicholas.
Yes, so I think like many other brands, obviously the guests, as we said, it's very difficult to commit. So very early on, Jumeirah, we did look at having as flexible as possible. I think there was different reasons for that. One of the reasons was also to cope with a number of, calls from the guests and everything. Obviously, we try to get the guests to rebook at a later stage. So we've really introduced a lot more flexibility. as we're looking at staycation now, is taking into account all those different guest behaviors. We really, I think each and every hotel will have to relook at its own strategy and what offers do you have and you provide to the customer. So obviously you need to look at offers that will be interesting for the customer. As I said, you know, I think there's a lot more hotels now looking at having in-room dining. So for an example is, you know, we have half-board, and how can we work with operation to potentially give in-room dining, not for breakfast or lunch or dinner, you know, if the customer wants it, and also that will help for the government rules, right? There's definitely a lot of that. What we're looking at also is, as we say, it's all local. So look at first at your staycation, but also look at, you know, what's going to happen, what type of offers will you need when you know, regional travel will be allowed again, and when it's going to be international. So I think we're looking at different stages, as I said, local, regional, international, looking at the new customer trends and try to adapt to that, to the offers we're going to give to our customers, definitely. Then I think there's different things also that now the discussions with the likes of Expedia and Booking.com is like, okay, what can we do? Definitely they're looking at highlighting the different health and safety measures that hotels are putting in place. And definitely all the OTAs will, or are looking already into kind of tagging and look and discuss with the OTAs, look at what you need to do, adhere to, again, the local authorities and what they're asking, but to how you can highlight your hotel as safe as possible and what your measures are being done. So all of that, I think, needs to relate back to operation, to health and safety, concerning all of that, and really relook completely, because it's different source markets now, obviously. It's completely different from what it is. And I would go back to look at your statistics, you know, what are the new trends, like Satis said, you know, what is the lead time? Where are people searching? What markets will be able to get, because obviously some markets are still on lockdown. Will Europe allow, you know, their citizen to travel again internationally, and when? And I think obviously, depending on the market, depending on where the hotel is based, there could be a different market, different lead time to tap into.
Perfect. That's interesting insight. I mean, coming to Satis, I mean, I love, I think your initiative when you started a couple of months back on We Clean, We Care, We Welcome. You know, and then I was just kind of trying to book, because it invited me to book as well. I could see a Better Stay Awaits book now. So, I mean, this is a very, very interesting, you know, practice on the online space. What more you think, what more would you like to share on these strategies, which are specifically on the distribution point of view? And I'm sure we know the phase-wise growth, we know how things are opening up, but how more can us hotels learn and practice now to prepare for the bounce back and even recover for the losses that we've incurred now?
Thank you, Kamesh. I hope you booked actually.
I am already.
All right. Yeah. So We Clean, We Care, and We Welcome is a global campaign that our company launched overall in the entire regions, not only MEA. We started with the Asia region, and then we rolled it out to all the other regions. The objective was very clear. The objective is to is because we understood that the customer base is very, very limited. And what is the ultimate requirement of the customer? You remember I mentioned about it is no longer the unique selling point. It is, I believe it's my own finding, it's a unique buying point, you know. So what was that unique buying point in a situation like the COVID, and when there is no much of a demand, and when there is a very limited customer base, and the customer needs are now totally changed. The customer needs an assurance from the hotel or from the place where they're going to stay that they're being taken care. They're staying in a very healthy environment. There is no threat of COVID that's going to attack them while they're staying in the hotel, etc. So I think that's where the focus was, and we nailed it, I believe, as a company, and I'm sure that, you know, we're going to go forward and focus and capitalize on this further. Now, secondly, is that yes, now we have given the assurance to the customer, and the customer believes that yes, staying with this hotel, we're gonna be safe. Now, what's up after that? What's next? So, what's your stay going to be after COVID? Is it going to be a better one? Is it going to be something that I'm going to see different, something that I'm going to experience, or I'm going to witness different service levels, etc. So that's the second focus of Better Stay Waits. And these are global campaigns that we do together, and obviously we put a lot of efforts into these campaigns. We focus, you know, every single region, you know, participate together to make sure that we target those customers who are currently limited, and we want to attract them to our hotels. Now, going to the coping strategies, best practices, you know, I strongly believe that the coping strategies were not the norms that we used to enjoy the business. The coping strategies is changing, and we have to, unfortunately or fortunately, we have to adapt to those coping strategies. We need to make sure that the distribution network, the distribution presence, we reach all the new and the niche markets. We have seen a shift in terms of distribution. I mean, you know, I love to touch base on the subject of the wholesale, you know, that traditional hoteliers used to sell on a wholesale business, package sale through different source markets, which is changing now. And, you know, if you look at Russia as a feeder market, used to be predominantly a wholesale driven business. But now the Russia has been changing to an electronic distribution platforms. Many Russian travel agents are actually approaching hotels and hotel companies to deal with them directly on a dynamic distribution platforms. So if you think about a traditional wholesale model of a usual traveler from Germany is changing to different distribution platforms. I think this is where the coping strategies needs to be focused on. Of course, the best practices are around that, how we can do that, how we can develop different products that can attract the buying behavior of the customer. It's just a room that you're going to sell, or are you going to sell a different product? So can we implement you know, buy now, stay later vouchers, or can we attack, I mean, for an example, attract you know, additional supplements or additional products to your room stay, developing a better experience, so that gives a better tomorrow for our hotel customers in the future.
Interesting. That's really, I think, very, very strong points coming out. And I think we can see a collaborative focus here as well. So fantastic. Ludovic, coming to your point, and, you know, while, you know, I love the statement, you know, that comes always when I try to book Shangri-La, which is, you are our top priority. I mean, that's like really, I feel so important with that signature for any traveler who's booking Shangri-La. And again, I think the interesting part that I observed was like how you've really come up with the staycation offer also being more micro segmented, whether it's a weekend staycation, fun family playcation, and there's a lot more. Would you like to share some of it, Ludovic? And how more can hotels, you know, learn and act for a better tomorrow?
Yeah, I think the staycation piece is interesting. So I think you can divide into the conversation into four. One is like you pointed out, and our guests are our first priority, but our staff as well are our first priority. And one of the key points that we always put forward as well, particularly now, is our safety and standards and increased cleanliness standards, right? I think consumer, and Nicola mentioned that before, will have will be more sensible than before to this aspect. So it's important for a reputable company like Shangri-La to make sure that that's put forward to our guests. And the other points around staycation is really interesting because we tend to try to avoid stay like from standard package staycation, really leveraging the best service and the best area of our hotels, right? So Shangri-La is well known for family, right? Because it's owned by family, right? So there's this heritage about being a family business, but also be able to welcome family business, which is a large segment for our company. Now, the other points that is interesting when you build up your staycation, one of the recommendation I can give is that try to look at what is the area in your own domestic that will be traveling to your hotel. So try to look at to understand people that live between 2 to 3 hours driving from your hotel, and understand what they're going to look from you, right? So are they going to be more family, more couples? So for example, we're seeing a trend in Hong Kong of more couple staycation over the weekend. And then trying to understand, and you can talk to your OTA partners, for example, that they can share some of these details, trying to understand what people are looking for, right? So, and it's like simple thing. If you think that people would probably drive for the most part in the initial part of the recovery, well, what about your parking, right? So you can have a simple package, which is like obviously contain an experience, it's something special about the property, but you also put forward some an inclusion of parking space or into your package, right? Or what are the other terms of flexibility they might looking for into the cancellation policy? That's another important element. So really try to understand from your, probably you need to look at differently to your segmentation, and revenue management will play, or already playing, such a crucial role into this, to understand how's that's going to shift, right? And how do you need to reshape your pricing, reshape your offering based on this segmentation and based on these customers.
Interesting. I mean, that's really getting a lot more out of the value, and I think it's the best means to look at persona and make it more personalized to that persona to of course cover up the ancillary revenue bit as well. So fantastic food for thought here, Ludovic. Now coming, I think we've all spoken about the source not being the same. I mean, the markets have changed. The current scenario also during the recovery is not looking the same as we thought historically we were getting business from. So of course, there's a lot more new discoveries. There's a lot more preparation to be done by the hotels to untap these revenue opportunities, and also not miss out on the potential source markets that could travel first into your destination. So what's your take like on this? I mean, coming to you, Sathis, I mean, how would you take this as you mentioned about the points, how the domestic segment, how resorts are seeing more demand, but where are these people coming from? Like Russia, you saying has shown a lot more traction in terms of searches. But yes, it's always good to mitigate that risk of not depending on one or two historic sources. So how would you see that changing, Sathis?
It's a very interesting question, and thank you for putting that forward. I very strongly believe, and also very strongly recommend, every hotelier join today to put lots of focus on your brand, especially your brand website. COVID-19, I think, is a biggest opportunity for us to relook at, review, and revitalize the strength of the brand and deliver that message to the customer. So your brand is the primary channel for your customers to receive the assurance of COVID-19 precautions when any of the customers staying in the hotel. I think this is the great opportunity for us. So, you indirectly, redirect your customers to your brand website. So your customers start trusting more on the brand website. Customer tend to go immediately to the brand website to get that assurance, to look for details, what this hotel is doing in terms of, adapting to the new norms of hospitality industry. And also big opportunities that the hoteliers needs to focus is the social channels, be it Facebooks or Instagrams or etc. So those social channels plays a vital role in today's, on the human life of modern humans, So if you think about the mobiles, the mobile usage in world, I think it's, a human use mobile more than 12 hours a day and then, search on several materials. So mobile marketing is something that the hoteliers definitely need to focus. And also your presence on the social channels, just not the content of descriptions that you write some words, our hotel is fantastic and it's safe for you to stay and we are fully sanitized, etc. No, I think we got to be transparent with the modern customer to show that, look, this is how we clean our housekeeping back offices, and this is how we become safe in our back office operations. This is how our kitchen looks, and this is how we prepare foods. This is how our employees actually assure your safety and health and safety when you're staying in our hotels. I strongly believe that this will change the world when you open up those opportunities, and when you open up those channels, just not the sales channel or not just the distribution channel that you're partnered with. Because if you think about your distribution channels, today many of those channels don't have the facility to show that to your customer. But this is where your brand website needs to be evolved, developed, that you actually can engage the customer and you let your customers see by themselves to make sure that, yes, I think this is a great place that I can take my family, I can take my spouse, or we all together as a group of friends can go and stay and enjoy the hospitality of this particular place. And also looking at source markets, as you said. So I shared with you earlier that we have seen a shift in source markets in terms of customer booking the hotels. To be example, it's not just the shift of source market; it's also a shift of how customers used to make bookings, or the channels. Coming from a traditional, a wholesaler or a bed bank perspective, we have seen shift in terms of customers going into direct channels, customers going into electronic channels and start relying more on electronic channels. And these are the areas that I would highly recommend the hoteliers to focus, and very especially, please put a lot of focus on your brand.com, your own social media channels, and make sure that you have 100% engagement of your customer so that the customer trusts you more than any other channel.
Sure.
Thank you, Kamesh.
Interesting. Over to you, Ludovic. I mean, I think more from your, your spread across the global landscape. How would this play a key role? And I'm sure you're experiencing the phase-wise opening up, the markets opening in a different fashion, the buying behaviors changing for each specific market or sub-brand. How would you see that, on your scale of things? And what more can the hoteliers learn from, for tapping more revenue opportunities?
Well, I think that's for the moment. It's one of the most complicated question in my mind, is understanding how your source market will be evolving. And because it comes down to what was your share of domestic versus what was your share of international market, and how this will be evolve in the current light of the restriction. Now, that being said, the question is to understand what are the new source markets that you can eventually talk to, right? So if you are in Southeast Asia, or if you are in Asia, what are the closer markets that you might be able to capture or to rethink, right? So if, for example, one of your key market was long ago, like US or UK, we all know that's going to be more complex to get those travelers back in the immediate future. So what are the new source markets that you need to be refocused, right? So looking for your neighbor country, Thailand, Malaysia, for example, if you are in Singapore, and looking, trying to understand and identify where these new markets are coming from, and where these new segments are coming from. What type of traveler as well we will be seeing into our hotels moving forward. But what we've seen is that there's an increase in weekend stay for the moment. That's the first things we're seeing. But corporate is going to coming back, right? So and obviously more on a domestic front, and less on an international front. So I think that's probably one of the key question is really understand what are the potential source markets you can look into, right? So really stay on top on each key country, travel ban, travel restrictions, lifting, because I think that's one of the key to be able to react and plan fast, right? So if probably digital channel will be your main channel to the world, or your main revenue stream for the foreseeable future, how do you need to redeploy your teams into the hotels, right? So if you had large sales team deployed onto certain source marketing in a traditional way, I mean, how do you need to redeploy them to recapture the new digital share? Yeah, but I think looking and planning according to what you see can be the markets that you can recapture, or that will be traveled first to your hotel.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it's also about opening up. I think we've also kind of done a lot more learning now with the current redressals of the micro segments that we are addressing these days, whether it's a staycationer, or you rightly mentioned about how even that staycation segment could be further segregated. So I think if that's replicated to the potential source markets, we're doing a fantastic job in the recovery with the value sales as well. So just a quick thought on that, Ludovic. How would you feel content would play a key role on this? I mean, I know because it's all about hygiene, safety, that's on topmost criteria for the traveler. This also addressing and inspiring those source markets to actually come to that destination and book. How would this play a key role with addressing that new potential source, which can bring in, say, a high revenue turnover on the ancillary revenue or weekend stays further? So how would you feel this could be adding value here?
Well, I believe I believe that for what concern the sort of cleanliness and the safety elements, that will be part of it, or integral part of your content. I think it's an interesting case study here in Singapore where they launched their own cleanliness certification, which is an independent body managed by the tourism board that certified hotels that have certain practice, and they are sort of adhere to certain higher hygiene standard that can to prevent virus spreads in a sense. And I think that's really important, because what better than an independent body to certify your property around safety and cleanliness. And the Singapore government is also giving badge that you can market, where you can market and use on your website. So that would be, I think, one of the most interesting part on my side is that surely, obviously every chain is also have his own program. But I think if you are in an independent hotels, part of a chain, so how are you going to do that, right? And that's probably, I think, where it's important to work with your local authority And then there's also understanding when to communicate those type of content, right? So making sure that you include it in your pre-stay email, and making sure you include it in your confirmation email. Work with your partners, with your OTA partner and distributor to maximize that visibility and that content. They're all working on adding new feature to their content to be able to reflect these new needs from the consumers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ludovic. That was very, very in-depth. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kamesh.
Yes.
And really appreciate the invite. As you know, I have to unfortunately drop off. But thanks for everyone, and really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes. So over to you, Nicholas. Again, on the source perspective, there's been some new learnings for all of us. We're also learning a lot more while we are seeing things open up, addressing and being open to new source markets, tapping them through content and through many efforts with the online travel partners and even our direct brand efforts. What's your take on this, Nicholas?
Yeah, I think in terms of the source market is $1 million question, right? Because as Ludovic just mentioned, and Satis, all of this will depend on all the different government restrictions and easing of travel. However, that's what I said. I mean, talking to OTAs, and this is where I think it's very important to talk to the OTAs, but also looking at what are your searches on your website, which markets are looking. And I think what will be very key in the coming months is how quick are you to adapt, and how can you look at automate a lot more things. I think that's going to be key, especially right now. I mean, on the way that I'm looking at this is really clean up everything, rethink from the start, right? And how can you adapt quickly to market on a sales perspective, but also on an online perspective. I think obviously when we look at quicker to adapt, then online is key. There's few things, and it goes a bit more technical, but right now I do a lot of things. I work with my hotel, making sure we have standards in place and we can have robotics being put, and this is more of a global basis. But then how can I have a promotion done within a day as opposed to within 2 to 3 weeks? Because that's going to be the key to which hotel is going to be able to grab the market first. Make sure that you have the right data and you have the right analysis, because what we're talking now, if 1 or 2 countries decide to, I'm French, France just opened up, I think yesterday, it's going to be all about how many cases they have, and all of that. So it's all going to be about adapting, looking at the data, talking to your customers, and then really being able to adapt as quickly as possible, but also rethink your distribution channel. So if you see that there's a specific source market, which are the top key agents in this source market, if you never worked with them, right? And find the right partners. And I know that, with RateGain, you work on also having, quicker to distribute with your new channels. So that's potentially is one of the things to use, right? Concerning content, I think back to Ludovic's point is each and every hotel will have to go back to each and every authorities, right? Because this is where I think each and every market and every hotel, depending on which part of the world you will be, there's going to be different legal requirements. But also what can you do more to kind of make sure that the customer feels safe coming back to your hotel? And I think operationally, we have to completely rethink how we're seeing things. I think there's been a lot of talk in the past few years with hotels having, check-in, but virtual check-in, with
how can I say, not with the staff, right? So of course, for luxury company, that's not something we would do, but probably we'll have to rethink all of that. And maybe customers will want to have an online check-in, maybe check-in even before coming to the hotel, a bit like the airline. How can we find a way with, you know, the guests searching, the guest booking the hotel, after it book, what communication, but also what's the experience, you know, prior, during, and after the stay. So I think there's different things and different technologies that can help with that. And I think the hotel is really going to have to really shift and work on digitalization, because obviously we'll want to reduce the customer interaction face to face. So that's I think for me it's a complete reset, complete rethink about how we work, and again, as I said, look at adapting as quickly as you can and bring automation as much as you can, and standardization.
Perfect. I mean, that's everything put together as a best practice. And I would say it's a fantastic, and we were all thinking in the same lines of being open. I think that's what these situations have taught us, to be open to the change and receptive to new revenue opportunities. What would your take be, Satis, on, you know, on the content bit when it comes to distributing online? And because it's in a way also inviting and aspiring the new source travelers to book your property or the location. So how would you take this from your standpoint?
I would like to start with you know, the point I mentioned about your brand, the brand website or brand distribution. I think it's a very good time for us, all of us as hoteliers, to step back, have a complete evaluation of how good the brand website or how good the brand distribution channel. And this is where the change needs to take place first. So you adapt to the new norms from the brand website and integrate, you know, the customer engagement. I mean, the customers are much more curious than they used to be before, because the world has changed. There's a lot of new norms in the world, and the behavior has changed. The needs has changed from of the customer. So this is something we need to thoroughly understand. As Nicola said, science needs to be integrated to what you need to do. You just don't take any emotional decisions. Rather, you integrate your scientific analysis to your changes and ensure that your content, because we used to always say content is the king, right? I think this really proves now that if you adapt and change your content to attract the customer with the reassurance of everything that you communicate through your content, it automatically becomes the king. And then you will be the most attractive hotel or hotel chain. This is very, very important to start from yourself or from ourselves itself, from the brand directly. Now, again, I said also about content, you know, content expansion, or let's say, what are the other channels that can actually support in terms of content development? So, you know, as I said, your social media plays a big role today. So focus on the content on the social media. One of the biggest, you know, attractive channel is YouTube. And, you know, you can have your own hotel YouTube channel to communicate to those customers, to make sure that you deliver the right communication, showing, you know, what you are and what hotel is all about. And I think this is where the customer really develop the trust. And I also would like to, you know, second what Nicola said about automation of distribution. Very important, hotels to understand and how we can actually be much more efficient and, you know, quick in terms of automation. A good example was about having a promotion launch takes 3-4 weeks. How can we do it overnight or in a couple of hours? And these are key points that the hotels definitely needs to ensure that the content, the significance and the importance of the content on your online distribution channels takes much more share and develops an understanding to your customer rather than it used to be before. And there was one comment from one of the participants about live streaming of C-Trip CEO recently. 8 live streaming generated around 150 million RMB. I think it's in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken. So again, this is another distribution channel, live streaming. Have hoteliers done that before? Is there an opportunity for us to do live streaming and engage our customers to watch what we are actually streaming? How do you retain your customers, regardless of what distribution channel it is, but you need to make sure that you retain your customer and then convert that customers to a direct customer for your hotel. There will certainly be lots of new norms and new directions, new standards that will be implemented in hotels, and we need to adapt. I think we need to be very innovative and be faster in implementing these measures. And also, as all three of us strongly believes in terms of dealing with your own authorities where you are located. So because from a place to place, authorities and the directions and restrictions that are implemented are different. So we need to adapt to that quickly. And we need to have the technical capabilities in applying those adaptive strategies going forward.
I love that. I love the word adaptive strategy. So it's in a way collaborative. And I think this is a very fantastic, viewpoint. I think coming from all three of you, and how more we can see. I mean, live streaming definitely is a new normal, the way it looks like. Of course, content with description, optimizing more from your direct channel, apart from working with your friends, that's the online channels. Social media, yes, of course, undoubtedly, they're the most critical means of communication at present. So it's a very, very good point that we brought. In fact, I glad I would also like to kind of apprise, on how we have taken this situation and innovated here. I mean, at RateGain, we are focused on helping hotels and hospitality partners in the market, through them, to increase and expand their market footing and profitability streams, because it's about profitability as well, and also to make it faster in terms of turnaround. So we've also helped through that, we've helped hotels to reimagine their distribution landscape and how fastly they could recover and respond to the post-COVID industry landscape here. So I would maybe love to share that bit right now. So yes, I think we've discussed each and every aspect and pain point from the hospitality industry distribution landscape. I think number one came as discovering new demand. Of course, that's been a pain point. And, the whole process that we discussed in the first 4 points takes nothing less than 2 to 5 to even 6 months, solving the whole problem here, which takes away a lot more revenue, because we understand, distribution is a direct play for hotels to bring in the revenues. That's what we're all driving. We're driving distribution, whether it's direct or through online partners. It's all about, getting the revenues as well as, recovering from the losses and stay prepared for the changes. So we've addressed all these points. We've actually, during the current learnings, we've incorporated on the new discovery demand into our distribution manager, which can actually help hotels with market insights to enable the discovery of the changing source markets and the missed channels that the hotels aren't working. And these are also easy through quick contracting where SLAs are negotiated and preset on the distribution system itself, which usually saves around 2 to 5 months process. And I think it doesn't stop there. To even respond to the opening up market, or before that, I mean, we saw the trends of demand increasing, the booking started for future dates. To even respond to that and make sure that the mapping is done correctly. I mean, whether it's marrying the rates to rates or rate codes to rate codes in those channels, we also innovated something called the mapping and channel recommender. So this is completely basis our innovation spree, and also addressing to the changes of the unprecedented times like the COVID-19. Because we are successful when the hospitality industry customers are, and I think we take pride in contributing in the many ways through that. So we've innovated AI-based mapping that eases out the manual mapping errors that could lead to revenue leakages as well. And this also helps you respond to the new channels or new sources faster than than the time that you could take otherwise as well. And of course, I think on the topmost priority, what we have really looked at all levels within the organization is ensuring safeguarding of data across multiple pillars of security. So data sovereignty, legal protection is very, very critical because of course, we can't have the data leakages, and hotels need to understand that this is of utmost importance to consider the risk of storing your data or your guest data in regions of world that are vulnerable to leakages here, or hacking, or could be anything. We have really helped overcome that in our system. So in a way, we have come together with our innovation to help the hospitality recover faster, set up automation faster, and even look at how well you can cope up with the losses and cover up for that. So that's what we've come up with. With that note, I would like to thank all of you. We are continuing this initiative. We have addressed most of the questions here. I think thanks to Satis, Nicholas, who've been addressing these questions while speaking at their points. But yes, we would like to thank all of you. We continue this initiative, over here. So we are looking at how we can update the hoteliers and the travel industry professionals. So we've got this live microsite that gives you live updates on the changing scenarios by each country, real-time data on any changes that's occurring. We're also providing consultation, in various fields and various functions, whether it's HR or new startup or expansion or social media. We've got our experts for free advice extended to the entire industry within the hospitality and travel landscape. And of course, we're happy to kind of continue this initiative. Happy to share the recording of these webinars with you. You can write to us. We will share the recording as well. Thank you so much. Thanks to Ludovic, to Nicholas, to Satis, and to the entire audience for taking the time out. Let's continue to learn, share, and evolve. Times are going to be better. Understanding the next session that we do would have a lot more silver linings. Maybe the cloud's going to be silver too. So let's continue to be open to change, open to rediscovering the ways that we think, and align our efforts together. Have a fantastic day ahead, and stay safe, all of you.